Picture two people. Both started businesses in the same year, same city, same industry. Both had business degrees from decent schools. Both had about $15,000 in savings to invest. Both worked from small apartments with secondhand furniture and big dreams written on whiteboards. The first one, let's call her Jennifer, set her alarm for 4:45 every morning. She'd read that executives wake up early, so she did too. By 5:30 she was answering emails. By 6 she was on sales calls to the East Coast. She worked through breakfast, scheduled back-to-back meetings until 7 at night, then came home to work on proposals until she fell asleep on her laptop. Weekends were for catching up. Vacations were for checking Slack. Family dinners were interrupted by urgent client texts that were never actually urgent. Jennifer believed in the grind. She posted about it on social media. Hustle culture, rise and grind. Sleep is for the weak. Her friends worried about her. Her body started breaking down. Migraines, digestive issues, constant colds. But she pushed through, because that's what you do when you're building something, right? 10 years later, Jennifer had a business generating $200,000 a year. She employed 3 people. She was exhausted every single day. Her marriage had nearly ended twice. She couldn't remember the last time she felt genuine joy. The business was profitable, sure, but it owned her. She was working for it, not the other way around. The second person, David, also started at 4:45 in the morning. But he wasn't answering emails. He was sitting in silence with coffee, watching the sky change colors. Sometimes he'd journal, sometimes he'd just think. By 6:30 he was working, but only on one thing. The one thing that would actually move his business forward that day. Not the easy things, not the urgent things, the important thing. By 9 he was usually done with his deep work. The rest of the day was meetings he wanted to take, lunch with interesting people, a workout, time with his kids after school. David had a rule. No work after 4 unless he was genuinely inspired. And if he was inspired, it didn't feel like work anyway. He took real vacations. He had hobbies. He seemed relaxed in a way that made other entrepreneurs uncomfortable, like he wasn't taking it seriously enough. But here's the thing. 10 years later, David's business was generating $2 million a year. He had a team of 22. They ran most of the operations. He worked about 20 hours a week, and most of that was strategic thinking and relationship building. He was healthier than he'd been in his 20s. His marriage was strong. He had energy for his life, not just his business. Same starting point. Wildly different outcomes. And here's what nobody wants to hear because it contradicts everything we've been taught. David's work felt easier. Not because he was lucky. Not because he had some unfair advantage. But because he understood something about wealth that Jennifer didn't. Something that elite athletes know. Something that quantum physicists have proven. Something that the wealthiest investors practice even if they don't always articulate it. Money doesn't flow to effort. Money flows to alignment. Money flows to clarity. Money flows to people who have created space for it to arrive. Your most profitable ideas, the ones that actually changed your financial reality, they didn't come when you were grinding at your desk under fluorescent lights with your third cup of coffee vibrating through your nervous system. They came in the shower, on a walk, in that liminal space between sleep and waking when your conscious mind finally shut up and your deeper intelligence could speak. Think about it right now. Think about the last time you had a genuinely good idea. Not a borrowed idea from a business book, not a tactic you saw someone else use. A real insight that felt like truth. Where were you? What were you doing? I'm willing to bet you weren't in effort mode. You were in allowing mode. This audiobook is going to challenge everything you believe about success and wealth building. It's going to make you uncomfortable. Parts of it will irritate you. You'll want to argue with me. You'll want to defend your hustle. That resistance is important. Pay attention to it. Because the same force that makes you want to defend your exhaustion is the force that's keeping you from the wealth you say you want. What you're about to learn isn't theory. It's based on watching hundreds of entrepreneurs, investors, artists, and executives over 15 years. The patterns are undeniable. The people who build lasting wealth, the kind that doesn't require sacrificing their health and relationships, they all do certain things differently. And most of those things look like less, not more. Less effort, less hustle, less force, more space, more alignment, more strategic ease. So take a breath. Get comfortable. What you're about to discover will either transform how you build wealth, or you'll dismiss it and go back to the grind. Either way, you'll know. You'll know there's another way, and you can't unknow it. Let's start with a truth that will probably make you angry. Your busyness is a drug, not a productivity strategy, not a sign of dedication, a drug. You are addicted to the neurochemical hit of feeling productive, and that addiction is costing you millions. Here's how the addiction works. You wake up and immediately check your phone. 43 notifications. Your nervous system spikes. Cortisol and adrenaline flood your body. You feel alert, alive, needed, important. You start responding to messages, putting out fires, crossing small tasks off your list. Each completion gives you a tiny hit of dopamine. Your brain says, yes, this is productivity. But it's not. It's just movement. Movement is not progress. By 10 in the morning, you've been busy for 5 hours. You've answered 50 emails, attended 2 meetings, updated 3 spreadsheets, and you haven't done a single thing that will actually build wealth. Not one thing, but you feel productive so you don't notice. This is the trap. Effort becomes its own reward. The feeling of being busy replaces the goal of being effective. Now here's the darker part. Somewhere in your history, someone taught you that suffering equals deserving. Maybe it was a parent who worked 3 jobs and told you that's what responsible people do. Maybe it was a coach who said pain is weakness leaving the body. Maybe it was a culture that celebrated martyrdom and treated rest as laziness. Whatever the source, you internalized a belief. If it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. If it comes easily, you didn't earn it. So when opportunities arise that feel too easy, you don't trust them. When someone offers to help, you say no because you should be able to do it yourself. When a strategy works without much effort, you assume it's not sustainable. You're literally trained to reject ease. And wealth, real wealth, comes through ease, through leverage, through doing less of what doesn't matter and more of what does. Let me tell you what actually happened last Tuesday. I was coaching a client named Rachel. She runs a marketing agency. She showed me her calendar. 72 hours of commitments that week. Client calls, team meetings, networking events. She was drowning. I asked her one question. How many of these meetings will directly generate revenue or significantly move your business forward? She stared at the screen. Maybe 6 of them, she said quietly. 6 out of 72 hours. 8% of her time was high leverage. 92% was either maintenance or performance theater. We did an experiment. She canceled or delegated everything that wasn't in that 8%, hired a junior account manager to handle client check-ins, sent an email to her networking group saying she was taking a sabbatical, moved all internal meetings to asynchronous updates. The first week she panicked. She felt guilty, lazy, irresponsible, like she was letting people down. Her nervous system was withdrawing from the busyness drug. By week 2, something shifted. She had space to think. She saw her business clearly for the first time in 2 years. She realized she was working with 3 clients who were high maintenance and low profit. She'd been keeping them because she was afraid of saying no, afraid of having gaps in her schedule. She let them go. Freed up 15 hours a week. Then she noticed something else. She'd been avoiding the one thing that would actually scale her business. Creating a group program instead of one-on-one services. She'd been too busy to build it. Now she had time. 3 months later, Rachel launched the program. Charged $25,000 for a cohort of 8 clients. 40 hours of work for $200,000 in revenue. Her old model would have required 400 hours for the same revenue. She looked at me in our last session and said something I'll never forget. I can't believe I spent 2 years thinking I had to work harder. I just needed to work clearer. That's the shift, from harder to clearer. Let's talk about what creates actual wealth. Not what creates the feeling of accomplishment. Not what impresses other people. What actually puts money in your account and builds assets that generate while you sleep. There are 3 categories of action. High leverage actions that multiply results. Maintenance actions that keep systems running. And performative actions that create the illusion of productivity while generating nothing of substance. Most people spend 5% of their time on high leverage, 20% on maintenance, and 75% on performative. High leverage actions feel different in your body. They usually involve some combination of these elements, creating something once that sells or serves repeated. Here's the exercise that will change everything if you actually do it. For the next 3 days, track your time in real time. Not at the end of the day when you're reconstructing it. In real time, set a timer for every 30 minutes. When it goes off, write down what you just did and label it. H for high leverage, M for maintenance, P for performative. Be honest, brutally honest. No one else will see this. At the end of 3 days, calculate the percentages. If you're like most people, you'll be shocked. you'll see that you're spending the majority of your time on activities that don't matter. And here's the key insight. It's not that you don't have time for high-leverage actions. It's that you've filled your time with performative actions to avoid the discomfort of high-leverage actions. Because high-leverage actions are scary. They involve risk, visibility, possible rejection. It's easier to hide an email. It's safer to stay in meetings. It's more comfortable to do busy work that no one can criticize because you're trying so hard. But comfort is not the same as wealth. Safety is not the same as success. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about the energetic piece that most business advice completely ignores. You are not a machine. You are an energy system. And the quality of energy you bring to your work determines what you attract and what you create. This isn't mystical. This is practical. When you're in a state of stress, when your nervous system is in fight or flight, your brain literally cannot access its higher functions. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for creativity, strategic thinking, and pattern recognition, goes offline. Blood flow redirects to your amygdala and your muscles because your body thinks you're in danger. You become reactive, short-term focused. You make decisions based on fear, not opportunity. In this state, you might work 12 hours, but the quality of that work is diminished. You miss insights. You overlook opportunities. You make small, safe choices instead of bold, leveraged moves. And most importantly, the energy you emit repels collaboration, serendipity, and flow. People can feel it even if they can't name it. You become someone who drains energy instead of generates it. Contrast that with working from a state of calm, presence, and clarity. Your nervous system is regulated. Your prefrontal cortex is fully online. You see patterns. You have insights. You make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. You're not just working harder. You're working from a higher level of consciousness, and the energy you emit attracts opportunities, collaborators, and resources. This is what people mean when they talk about being magnetic. It's not about positive thinking or vision boards. It's about nervous system regulation. It's about doing the internal work so that your default state is calm alertness instead of anxious reactivity. When you're in that state, you don't have to chase opportunities. They come to you, not because the universe is magical, but because people want to work with someone who makes them feel expanded instead of contracted. Let's practice something right now. I want you to pause whatever else you're doing if you can. If you're driving, obviously keep your eyes on the road, but you can still do this. Take a deep breath in through your nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now exhale through your mouth for 6 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do this 3 more times with me. Breathing in calm, breathing in clarity, breathing in capacity, breathing out the need to force, breathing out the addiction to busy, breathing out the belief that you have to earn your worth. Notice what happens in your body. Your shoulders probably dropped. Your jaw might have unclenched. There might be a feeling of space where there was tightness. This is the state you want to work from. This is the frequency of wealth, not the frequency of hustle, not the frequency of proving, the frequency of allowing. Now let me take you into a real moment. A client of mine, let's call him James, ran a software company. 15 employees, $7 million in annual revenue. Sounds successful, right? But James was miserable. He was the bottleneck for every decision. Every feature request went through him. Every client escalation came to him. Every team conflict needed his mediation. He was working 70 hours a week and the company couldn't grow because he couldn't clone himself. I asked him, "What would happen if you disappeared for a month?" He laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Everything would fall apart," he said. "My team depends on me." "I can't just leave," I nodded. "Exactly. You've built a company that can't succeed without you being in every detail. That's not a business. That's an exhausting job you can't quit." He got defensive at first, started listing all the reasons why his involvement was necessary. His team wasn't ready. The clients expected him. The decisions were too important. I let him finish. Then I asked, "Do you want to build a business or do you want to be the business?" That stopped him. He sat with it for a long moment. "I want to build a business," he finally said. "But I don't know how to let go." So we designed an experiment. Every Monday, James would be completely unavailable. No Slack, no email, no phone. His team would have to make decisions without him. His assistant would handle anything urgent, which really meant anything actually on fire, not just uncomfortable. And James would use that time to think, to get clear, to work on the business instead of in it. The first Monday was torture for him. He kept reaching for his phone. He felt irresponsible. What if someone needed him? What if something went wrong? He took a walk instead. 3 miles. No podcast, no music, just walking. And somewhere around mile 2, his mind started to settle. He started seeing his business differently. He realized he was making himself indispensable because it made him feel needed. But being needed and building wealth are two different things. By the third Monday, something clicked. He was walking again, and he had a complete vision for restructuring the company. He'd create 3 team leads, give each of them full authority over their domain. His job wasn't to make every decision. His job was to set direction, build culture, and handle the strategic relationships. Everything else could be delegated to people who were actually closer to the work. He implemented it over the next quarter. There was resistance. Some team members didn't want the responsibility. One person quit, but the ones who stayed stepped up. And James started working 30 hours a week. Revenue increased 20% because decisions were happening faster. Innovation improved because the people doing the work were empowered to improve it. And James, for the first time in 5 years, had energy for his life. 6 months later, he told me, "I thought being in every detail was my job as a leader. Now I realize my presence in every detail was the thing holding us back. I wasn't leading, I was controlling. And control doesn't scale. This is the distinction most people miss. There's a difference between high-value involvement and micromanagement. High-value involvement is strategic. It's being present for the decisions that actually matter, the big bets, the culture-shaping moments, the key relationships. Micromanagement is being present for everything because you don't trust the system or the people or yourself. When you're micromanaging, you think you're being responsible. You think you're ensuring quality. But what you're actually doing is training your team to be dependent. You're creating a culture where people wait for permission instead of taking ownership. And you're trapping yourself in a prison of your own making. Here's a question that will reveal where you are. If you took a 2-week vacation tomorrow, truly unplugged, what would happen to your business or your career? If the answer is nothing would get done, or it would fall apart, you don't have a wealth-generating system. You have a job that owns you. Now let's talk about something that makes people uncomfortable: strategic laziness. This is not about being unambitious. This is not about lowering your standards. This is about being ruthlessly clear about what actually matters and having the discipline to ignore everything else. Most people fail not because they don't work hard enough, but because they work hard on the wrong things. They're excellent at being busy. They're terrible at being selective. Strategic laziness is the practice of being lazy about low-leverage activities so you can be excellent at high-leverage activities. This means saying no to most opportunities. This means letting things fall apart that don't matter. This means being okay with people thinking you're not hustling hard enough, because you know something they don't. You know that wealth isn't built through effort. It's built through leverage. And leverage requires space. Space to think. Space to see. Space to choose. Let me give you a practical example. You get invited to a networking event. It's on Thursday evening. You're tired. You'd rather go home. But you think you should go because you might meet someone important. You might miss an opportunity, so you drag yourself there. You make small talk with 12 people. You collect business cards. You stay for 2 hours. You drive home exhausted. You follow up with everyone the next day. Nothing comes of it. Here's what strategic laziness looks like instead. You say no to the networking event. You go home. You have dinner with your family. You go to bed early. You wake up Friday morning rested. You spend 2 hours on deep work. You make real progress on the project that will actually generate revenue. Then you reach out to 3 specific people you've been meaning to connect with. People you already know could be valuable relationships. You schedule 3 coffee meetings next week. 2 of those meetings lead to real opportunities. Same time investment. Different approach. One is scattered and reactive. The other is focused and strategic. The first one feels like hustle. The second one feels like laziness because you said no to something. But which one actually created wealth? Strategic laziness requires self-trust. You have to trust that saying no to the wrong things creates space for the right things. You have to trust that less activity with more intention beats more activity with less intention every single time. You have to trust that you don't need to do everything. You just need to do the right things. Here's a practice you can implement today. At the end of each day, look at your calendar for tomorrow. Circle the 3 activities that are actually high leverage. The 3 things that, if you only did those 3 things, would make tomorrow a successful day. Now make those 3 things non-negotiable. Protect them. Do them first. Everything else is optional. If you get to it, great. If you don't, it didn't matter enough. Watch what happens over a week. you'll notice that most of the optional things don't actually matter. No one follows up. Nothing breaks. The world keeps turning. And you've just freed up hours of time and energy that you can redirect to what actually builds wealth. Now we need to talk about the environment you're operating in, because your environment is either supporting wealth or sabotaging it, and most people have never consciously designed their environment for success. They've just accepted whatever default showed up. Your environment includes your physical space, who you spend time with, what you consume mentally and emotionally, the rhythms and routines of your days, the tools and systems you use. All of it is either pulling you toward wealth or pushing you away from it. Let's start with physical space. Look around right now. What does your workspace communicate? Is it cluttered and chaotic? That's what your mind is working through. Is it sterile and corporate? That might be why your creativity feels flat. Is it comfortable and considered? Does it make you want to do your best work? Your environment speaks to your subconscious constantly. It either says you matter, or this is temporary, or good enough is fine. I'm not talking about expensive furniture or trendy design. I'm talking about intentionality, plants, natural light, a door you can close, a chair that supports your body, art that inspires you, space that feels like it's yours. Small things that signal to your nervous system that you're building something that lasts. Now think about the people you spend the most time with. This is harder to look at honestly. Are they expanding or contracting? Are they building or complaining? Are they talking about possibilities or problems? Are they celebrating your wins or subtly undermining them? You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This isn't a cliche. It's neuroscience. Mirror neurons. Your brain literally patterns itself after the people you're around. If you're surrounded by people who are stuck playing small, justifying their limitations, that becomes your normal. If you're surrounded by people who are building, taking risks, expanding into their potential, that becomes your normal. This doesn't mean you abandon everyone who isn't successful. It means you're conscious about who's shaping your thinking. It means you might need to love some people from a distance while you're building. It means you actively seek out people who are 5 or 10 years ahead of where you want to be. Not because you want to use them, but because proximity to their thinking will upgrade your own. Here's a practice. List the 10 people you spend the most time with. Next to each name, write one word that describes the energy they bring to your life. Expanding or contracting, inspiring or draining, forward or stuck. Now look at the list. If more than half are contracting, draining, or stuck, you have an environment problem. And environment problems create wealth problems. Your media diet matters just as much. What are you feeding your mind every day? Are you starting your morning with news designed to trigger fear and outrage? Are you scrolling social media that makes you feel inadequate? Are you consuming content from people who are bitter about success? All of that is programming your subconscious. It's setting your frequency. Or are you consuming insight, wisdom, and possibility? Are you reading books by people who've done what you want to do? Are you listening to conversations that expand your thinking? Are you exposing yourself to beauty, complexity, and depth? What you consume becomes what you think about. What you think about becomes what you believe. What you believe becomes what you create. Try this experiment for 1 week. No news, no social media. No consumption of content that isn't directly related to learning something valuable or experiencing something beautiful. You'll feel anxious at first. You'll feel like you're missing out. That's the addiction talking. Push through. By day 4 or 5, you'll notice something. Your mind is quieter. You're thinking your own thoughts instead of reacting to everyone else's. You're seeing opportunities you were too distracted to notice before. Now let's talk about your daily rhythms. Most people structure their days around external demands, when other people need them, when meetings are scheduled, when emails arrive. This is backwards. Wealth builders structure their days around their own energy cycles and their highest leverage work. You have about 3 to 4 hours of peak cognitive capacity each day. For most people, it's in the morning. For some, it's late at night. Whenever it is for you, that time is sacred. That's when you do the work that actually builds wealth. The strategic thinking, the creative work, the important conversations. Everything else gets scheduled around that. But most people waste their peak hours on email and meetings. They give their best energy to other people's agendas. Then they try to do their important work when they're already depleted. And they wonder why progress is so hard. It's hard because you're using the wrong fuel at the wrong time. Redesign your day. Protect your peak hours. No meetings, no email, no distractions. Just you and your highest leverage work. Let the rest of the world wait. It can wait. It will wait. And if something is genuinely so urgent that it can't wait 3 hours, You have a systems problem, not a time management problem. Let me tell you about Maya. She's a consultant who works with Fortune 500 companies. High stakes, high pressure, lots of demands on her time. She used to structure her days around client availability. If a client wanted a meeting at 8 in the morning, she took it. If someone needed a call at 7 at night, she made it work. She thought this was good service. This was being responsive. This was how you keep clients happy, but she was exhausted. And her best work, the strategic insights that actually created value for clients, those weren't happening. She was too busy being available to actually be valuable, so she made a change that felt radical and risky. She blocked out 8 to noon every single day. No meetings, no exceptions. That was her time for deep work. Client meetings could happen from 1 to 5. Anything urgent could go through her assistant, who had permission to interrupt only for genuine emergencies. The first week, she got pushback. A client wanted a morning meeting. She offered afternoon slots. They were annoyed. She held firm. The client took an afternoon slot, and something interesting happened. The quality of her work improved so dramatically that clients started commenting on it. She was bringing insights she never had time to develop before. She was connecting dots she was too scattered to see. Her value increased. Her rates increased. Her revenue increased. And she was working less. One client told her, "I don't know what you changed, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. This is the best work I've seen from you." She didn't tell him what changed. She just smiled and said thank you. But what changed was simple. She stopped being reactive and started being strategic. She stopped giving her best energy away and started protecting it. She stopped trying to be available to everyone and started being valuable to the right people. That's what wealth without effort looks like in practice. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things at the right time with the right energy. It's about designing your environment and your days so that wealth building becomes natural instead of forced. Now, let's talk about the distinction between aligned action and forced action, because this is where most people get stuck. They know they should be doing something. They're taking action. They're working hard, but it's not working, and they can't figure out why. The reason is usually this. They're taking for... The first type is resistance to wrong moves. This resistance feels heavy, murky, contracting. Your body is saying no in a deep way. You might not be able to articulate why, but something feels off. When you push through this resistance, you create problems. You end up in situations that drain you. You attract the wrong clients, partners, or opportunities. You make money, but you're miserable. The second type is resistance from fear of visibility or growth. This resistance feels electric, clear, expanding. Your body is saying no, but your soul is saying yes. There's fear, but it's excitement fear, not danger fear. When you push through this resistance, you have breakthroughs. You level up. You discover you were capable of more than you thought. You make money and you're energized. Most people can't tell the difference, so they either push through everything and burn out, or they avoid everything and stay small. The skill is learning to read your own signals, and the only way to develop that skill is to practice, to try things, to notice how different types of action feel in your body, to track what happens when you listen to the heavy no versus when you push through the electric fear. Here's an exercise. Think about a decision you're facing right now, something you're uncertain about. Close your eyes and imagine yourself taking action on it. Really visualize it. What happens in your body? Do you feel expansion or contraction? Does your chest open or close? Does your breathing deepen or get shallow? Does it feel like possibility or obligation? Now imagine yourself not taking action on it. What happens? Relief or regret? Relaxation or disappointment? Neither response is wrong. They're just information. If you feel relief when you imagine not doing it, that's your body saying it's not aligned. If you feel regret, that's your body saying you're avoiding something that matters. This is not about positive thinking or manifesting. This is about developing the wisdom to know which actions will actually create wealth and which will just create busy work or burnout. Your body knows, your intuition knows. But most people have been trained to ignore those signals and override them with shoulds and supposed tos. Let me tell you about Carlos. He's a real estate investor. He'd been successful for years following a specific formula. Buy undervalued properties in emerging neighborhoods, renovate them, rent them out, build equity. It worked. He had a portfolio of 18 properties. Good cash flow. But something felt off. He wasn't excited about it anymore. It felt like maintenance, not growth. He kept hearing about short-term vacation rentals. Everyone in his network was talking about how much money they were making. The returns were significantly higher than long-term rentals. His financial advisor ran the numbers. It made sense on paper. So Carlos decided to convert 3 of his properties to short-term rentals. But every time he started the process, something would go wrong. Contractors would flake, permits would get delayed, the platforms would change their policies. It felt like he was pushing against something. He told himself it was just normal resistance, just the universe testing him. He pushed harder. 6 months later, he had the properties converted. They sat empty for weeks. The bookings didn't materialize the way they did for everyone else. He was dealing with constant issues, guests complaining, more maintenance, way more stress. And the returns weren't even close to what he'd projected. He felt like a failure, like he'd done something wrong. But the truth was simpler. It wasn't aligned. The strategy worked for other people, but it wasn't his path. He was forcing it because it looked good on paper and because everyone else was doing it. His body had been telling him no the whole time. The delays, the problems, the resistance, those were signals. He just didn't know how to read them. Eventually, he sold those properties and used the capital differently. He partnered with a developer on a small apartment complex. It felt completely different, easy. The deal came together smoothly. The project stayed on schedule. The returns exceeded projections. And Carlos was engaged and excited about it in a way he hadn't been in years. When I asked him what he learned, he said, "I learned that hard doesn't always mean it's building character. Sometimes hard just means it's wrong. And easy doesn't mean I'm cheating. Sometimes easy means I'm finally on the right path." That's the shift. From believing that hard work is always virtuous, to understanding that aligned work is what creates wealth. From pushing through everything to learning when to push and when to pivot. From ignoring your intuition to treating it as valuable data. Now let's talk about receiving, because this is where most people unconsciously sabotage themselves. You can do everything else right, all the strategy and the effort and the positioning, but if you can't receive, wealth will flow past you. Receiving is a skill. It's not automatic. Most people are terrible at it. Someone compliments their work, they deflect. Someone offers to help, they say they've got it covered. Someone wants to pay them what they're worth, they discount. Someone tries to give them an opportunity, they list all the reasons they're not ready. This is rejection dressed up as humility, and it's killing your wealth. Here's why it happens. Somewhere in your history, you internalized a belief that you have to earn everything. That accepting help is weakness. That if you didn't struggle for it, you don't deserve it. Maybe you grew up with scarcity and learned that there's never enough. Maybe you had a parent who martyred themselves and taught you that's what good people do. Maybe you've been hurt by generosity that came with strings attached, so you learned to refuse it. Whatever the origin, the result is the same. You're walking around with invisible armor that deflects abundance. People sense it. Opportunities sense it. Money senses it. Not because the universe is conscious, but because your energy communicates that you're not available, that you're closed, that you can't hold more. And here's the paradox. The more you prove you can do everything yourself, the less help you receive. The more you demonstrate you don't need anyone, the less anyone offers. You think you're being strong and capable, but you're actually broadcasting unavailability. You're training the world to leave you alone. Wealthy people understand something different. They understand that receiving is not passive. Receiving is active. It requires vulnerability. It requires staying open when every instinct tells you to close. It requires believing that you're worthy of good things even when you haven't done anything to earn them in that specific moment. Let's practice receiving right now. Think of the last compliment someone gave you. How did you respond? Did you deflect it? Did you explain it away? Did you immediately compliment them back to neutralize the discomfort of being seen? Now imagine responding differently. Imagine looking them in the eye, letting it land, and simply saying thank you, meaning it. Receiving it fully. That's the practice. That's the skill. Here's a 7-day experiment that will change your relationship with receiving. For the next week, accept everything offered to you. Someone compliments you. You say thank you and nothing else. Someone offers to help. You say yes, please. Someone tries to pay for coffee. You let them. Someone recommends you for an opportunity. You say, I'd love to explore that. No deflecting. No explaining. No reciprocating immediately. Just receiving. You're going to feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is important. It's showing you your capacity limit, the amount of goodness you believe you can hold. And that limit is arbitrary. It's not real. It's just the edge of your current identity. Receiving practices expand that edge. They teach your nervous system that it's safe to have more, that you don't have to earn every good thing. That generosity can be trusted. Watch what happens over that week. You'll notice more opportunities appearing, not because you changed your strategy, but because you changed your signal. You went from broadcasting I'm not available to I'm open, and the world responds to that frequency. Now let's talk about compound ease, because this is the holy grail of wealth building. Most people understand compound interest, money earning money, but compound ease is different and more powerful. It's systems earning freedom. It's relationships earning opportunities. It's assets working while you sleep. Every choice you make either adds to your compound ease or subtracts from it. Here's what compound ease looks like in practice. You hire someone to handle the tasks you hate. That frees up 5 hours a week. You use those 5 hours to build a group program instead of trading time for money. That program generates passive income. You use that income to hire another person. Now you have 10 hours of freedom. You use that to build relationships with strategic partners. Those relationships become referral engines. Now opportunities come to you instead of you chasing them. Each decision compounds into the next. Contrast that with the opposite. You refuse to hire help because you can't quite afford it yet. You keep doing everything yourself. You're exhausted, so the quality of your work declines. You lose clients. You have less money, so you definitely can't hire help now. You work more hours to make up the difference. You burn out. You get sick. You lose more clients. Everything compounds in the wrong direction. The question isn't, can I afford this? The question is, what is my time worth? If you charge $200 an hour for your work, and you're spending 5 hours a week on tasks someone else could do for $30 an hour, you're losing $850 a week. That's 40. Let me tell you about Nina. She's a designer who worked with high-end clients. She did everything herself. Client communication, project management, file organization, social media, bookkeeping, invoicing. She was proud of her independence. But she could only take on 3 clients at a time because of all the administrative work. Each client paid $15,000, $45,000 per quarter. She was working 60 hours a week. A mentor suggested she hire help. Nina resisted. She didn't think she could afford it. The mentor asked, "What if you could take on 5 clients instead of 3? Nina said that was impossible. There weren't enough hours in the week. The mentor smiled. Exactly. Not enough hours for you to do everything. But what if you weren't doing everything? Nina ran the numbers. If she hired someone for 25 hours a week at $30 an hour, that was $3,000 a month. $36,000 a year. It felt like a lot. But if she could take on 2 more clients per quarter because she wasn't doing administrative work, that was an extra $30,000 per quarter. $120,000 per year. Minus the $36,000 in cost, she'd net an extra $84,000. And work fewer hours. She made the hire. It was uncomfortable at first. Training someone, letting go of control, trusting that things would get done. But within 2 months, she took on her 4th client. Within 4 months, her 5th. Within 6 months, she raised her prices to $20,000 per client, because demand exceeded her availability. Her revenue doubled. Her working hours dropped to 40 per week. And she had space to think strategically about her business instead of just executing tasks. 1 year later, she told me, "I can't believe I resisted this for so long. I thought doing everything myself was being responsible. Now I realize it was just fear masquerading as virtue. The best business decision I ever made was admitting I couldn't and shouldn't do everything. That's compound ease. One decision that creates space for the next decision that creates more space for the next opportunity. It's not magic. It's strategy. It's math. It's understanding that your time and energy are your most valuable assets, and protecting them is not selfish. It's essential. Here's another form of compound ease. Building assets that generate income without your ongoing time. This is what separates people who trade time for money from people who build wealth. If you stop working, does money stop coming? If yes, you don't have assets. You have a job, even if you own the business. Assets can be digital products, courses, templates, software. They can be intellectual property, books, licensing deals, royalties. They can be equity, ownership in businesses or real estate that other people manage. They can be systems, automated marketing, referral networks, platforms that connect buyers and sellers without your involvement. The shift happens when you start asking, how can I create once and sell repeatedly, instead of how many hours can I work this week? When you start asking, how can I build systems that work without me, instead of how can I do this faster? When you start asking, what could I own instead of just operate, instead of how can I be more productive? These questions change everything, because they shift your focus from effort to leverage, from trading time to building assets, from busy to wealthy. And the beautiful thing is, assets compound. The course you create generates income while you sleep. That income funds the next asset, which generates more income, which funds the next asset. Within a few years, your assets are generating more than your active work. That's when you've achieved wealth without effort. Let me show you what this looks like with a specific example. Meet Priya. She's a therapist. For years, she traded time for money. 50-minute sessions at $150 each. She could see maybe 25 clients a week if she worked full-time. That's about $90,000 a year before taxes and expenses. Good income, but completely dependent on her showing up. If she got sick, no income. If she wanted to travel, no income. If she wanted to scale, she couldn't. There are only so many hours in a week. She kept thinking there had to be a better way. One day a client told her, I wish I could record our sessions and listen back to them. The insights you share are so valuable, but I forget them by the next week. That comment planted a seed. What if Priya could package her most common teachings into a program that people could access anytime? She spent 3 months creating it. A 12-module course on managing anxiety, using the techniques she'd taught hundreds of clients. She recorded videos, created worksheets, built a private community. She priced it at $497. Much less than working with her one-on-one, but accessible to way more people. The first month, 5 people bought it. $2,500. She was disappointed. That was less than she'd make seeing 2 clients. But then something happened. Those 5 people started talking about it, recommending it. The next month, 12 people bought it. The month after, 23. Within 6 months, she was averaging 40 sales per month. $20,000 in passive income. And she hadn't created anything new. The same course, selling over and over. She still saw private clients, but now she only took 10 per week. The ones she genuinely wanted to work with. Her active income was $60,000. Her passive income was $240,000. Total $300,000, more than triple what she was making before, and she was working half the hours. 2 years later, she'd created 3 more courses. Her passive income was over $500,000 annually. She'd hired a small team to handle customer service and marketing. She worked 15 hours a week, mostly on creative projects she loved. And here's the key, if she wanted to take a month off, her income didn't stop. The courses kept selling. The systems kept running. She'd built wealth without being present for every transaction. That's the power of assets. You do the work once. You get paid repeatedly. Time and money become decoupled. That's when you're truly building wealth. Not just earning a living, Now let's talk about detachment, because this is the most misunderstood principle of wealth building. People think detachment means not caring, not trying, accepting mediocrity. That's not detachment. That's apathy. Detachment is caring deeply about your vision while releasing attachment to exactly how and when it unfolds. Here's the difference. Attachment says, this has to happen in this specific way by this specific date, or I've failed. Detachment says, I'm taking powerful action toward this vision, and I'm open to it manifesting in ways I haven't imagined. Attachment grips. Detachment guides. Attachment creates desperation. Detachment creates confidence. When you're attached to a specific outcome, you miss better opportunities. You're so focused on the path you planned that you don't see the shortcut that appeared. You're so committed to your strategy that you can't adapt when circumstances change. You're so invested in being right that you can't learn from being wrong. Attachment makes you rigid, and rigidity breaks. Detachment makes you flexible. It allows you to pivot when something's not working. It allows you to say yes to opportunities you didn't predict. It allows you to release what's not serving you without feeling like you failed. Detachment is how you stay in the game long enough to win. I see this with entrepreneurs constantly. They have an idea for a business. They spend 2 years building it exactly as they envisioned. They launch. It doesn't work. Instead of adapting, they double down. They're attached to their original vision. They take it personally when the market doesn't respond. They go broke trying to prove they were right. That's attachment. Detachment looks different. They have an idea. They test it quickly. It doesn't work. They adjust. They try a different angle. That doesn't work either. They try another. The 5th iteration works. They scale that. They weren't emotionally attached to the first idea being right. They were committed to finding what works. That's the difference. Here's a practice that builds detachment. Think about something you're working toward right now. Something important to you. Now complete this sentence. I'm committed to this vision, and I release attachment to what comes up. Maybe it's the timeline. Maybe it's what success looks like. Maybe it's who you thought you needed to become. Whatever it is, practice saying it out loud. I release attachment to this happening exactly as I planned. I trust that something even better is possible. This isn't giving up. This is creating space. Space for synchronicity. Space for opportunities you couldn't have planned. Space for the universe to deliver something better than your limited vision could conceive. The most successful people I know have this quality. They're incredibly clear on their vision and incredibly flexible about the path. Let me tell you about Kenji. He's a musician who spent 10 years trying to make it in the traditional music industry. He wanted a record deal. He wanted radio play. He wanted to tour with major acts. That was success in his mind. He sent demos to labels for years. Got rejected constantly. Played small venues for almost no money. He was talented. But the industry wasn't biting. He was attached to a specific version of success, and it was killing him. His mentor, another musician, said something that changed everything. You're so focused on the door you think you need to walk through that you're not noticing the 10 doors that are already open. Kenji didn't understand at first. The mentor continued, You have 1,000. That's the power of detachment. It doesn't mean you stop wanting things. It means you stop strangling them. You stop demanding they show up in a specific form. You create space for something better than you could have imagined. Now let's talk about flow state, because this is where wealth without effort becomes most tangible. Flow is that state where you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. Time disappears. Effort feels effortless. You're performing at your peak, but it doesn't feel like work. Athletes call it the zone. Artists call it inspiration. Scientists call it optimal consciousness. Whatever you call it, it's the state where you do your best work with the least strain. Most people experience flow accidentally. It just happens sometimes. But flow can be engineered. There are conditions that make it more likely. And when you structure your work around those conditions, you spend more time in flow and less time forcing. That's when wealth building becomes natural instead of exhausting. Flow requires a few elements. A clear goal, immediate feedback, a balance between challenge and skill, minimal distractions, And most importantly, intrinsic motivation. You have to care about what you're doing for its own sake, not just for the outcome. Here's where most people go wrong. They're working on things they don't actually care about. They chose a business because it seemed profitable, not because they were genuinely interested. They're serving clients they don't enjoy because they need the money. They're building something they think they should build instead of what they want to build. And they wonder why they never get into flow. Because flow requires genuine engagement. You can't flow into something your soul doesn't want to do. This is the deeper work, aligning your wealth building with your actual interests, not what you think you should be interested in, not what impresses other people. What genuinely fascinates you, what you do even if no one paid you. Because when your work is aligned with your genuine interest, flow becomes accessible. And flow is where your highest value work happens. Think about the last time you were in flow. What were you doing? What conditions were present? Were you alone or with certain people? What time of day was it? What had you done right before? These are your flow triggers, and you can engineer them. If you flow in the morning, protect your mornings. If you flow when you're alone, create alone time. If you flow after movement, build movement into your routine. If you flow when you're working on creative challenges, structure your work to include those challenges. Don't leave flow to chance. Design your days around the conditions that create it. Let me tell you about Alicia. She's a strategist who works with tech startups. Her best work happened in flow. Strategic frameworks that her clients paid $50,000 for. But flow was rare, maybe once a month. The rest of the time she was grinding. Meetings, emails, calls. She was busy but not productive. Paid but not fulfilled. We mapped her flow states. She realized flow happened when she had a complex problem to solve, 3 uninterrupted hours, and she was walking or in nature. Never at her desk, never in back-to-back meetings, always when she had space to think. So we redesigned her work. She blocked 3-hour windows twice a week. No meetings, no phone. She'd go to a park with a notebook. Walk and think. Let her mind work on the problem without forcing. By the end of each session, she'd have insights that would have taken days at her desk. She'd come back and document them in an hour. Her output didn't decrease. It increased. She was producing better work in less time, and she was enjoying it. She told me, "I always thought I needed to be at my desk to be professional. Now I realize that being at my desk was killing my best thinking. My million-dollar ideas don't happen in my office. They happen on trails. That's engineering flow. That's understanding how you work best and designing your life around it instead of forcing yourself into a mold that doesn't fit. That's wealth without effort in action." Now let's go deeper into the internal work, because all the strategy in the world doesn't matter if your internal state is sabotaging you. You can have the perfect business model, the right connections, the ideal market conditions, and still fail if you can't hold the wealth when it arrives. This is what people mean when they talk about your wealth set point. It's the amount of money and success your nervous system feels safe having. Above that amount, you unconsciously self-sabotage. You make bad decisions. You overspend. You create drama. You burn bridges. Your subconscious is trying to bring you back to what feels familiar, even if familiar means struggling. Your wealth set point was formed early. It's based on what you observed and experienced growing up. If you grew up with scarcity, your nervous system learned that having a lot is dangerous. Maybe having more meant your parents fought about money. Maybe someone you knew who had money lost it all. Maybe you absorbed the belief that wealthy people are greedy or disconnected. Whatever the programming, it's running in the background, sabotaging your success. The work is to identify that programming and rewrite it. This isn't about affirmations. Affirmations don't work because they're surface level. You can say "I am wealthy" all day long, but if your nervous system believes wealth is dangerous, it will block you. The work is deeper. It's about finding the root beliefs and updating them. Here's an exercise that reveals your wealth programming. Complete these sentences quickly without thinking. First thing that comes to mind. Money is. Wealthy people are. If I had a lot of money, I would. What I learned about money growing up was people in my family believed money was. Look at your answers. Are they empowering or limiting? Expansive or contracting? If you wrote things like "money is hard to get" or "wealthy people are selfish" or "having money would make me a target," those are limiting beliefs. They're creating an internal conflict. Part of you wants wealth. Another part believes wealth is bad. That conflict keeps you stuck at your set point. The shift happens when you examine those beliefs. Where did they come from? Are they actually true? Or are they just stories you inherited? Can you find counterexamples? Wealthy people who are generous? Money that came easily. Times when having more actually created safety and options. Let me tell you about Thomas. He built a software company that got acquired. 7-figure payout. Life-changing money. He should have been thrilled. But he was terrified. He started having panic attacks. Couldn't sleep. Within 6 months, he'd blown through half the money on bad investments and impulsive purchases. He came to me confused. I worked for this for 10 years. Why am I destroying it? We dug into his history. His father had owned a business that went bankrupt when Thomas was 12. They lost their house. His father became depressed. His mother had to work 2 jobs. The family barely recovered. Thomas internalized a belief. Having a lot of money is dangerous. You'll lose it. It will destroy your family. Better to stay small and safe. His conscious mind wanted wealth. His subconscious mind was terrified of it, so he was unconsciously sabotaging to get back to what felt safe. Once we identified that pattern, he could work with it. He did the deeper healing, separated his story from his father's, realized that he had different skills, different support, different circumstances. The bankruptcy wasn't because of the money. It was because of specific choices his father made. Thomas stopped the self-sabotage. He got clear on his values and built a wealth plan aligned with them. He invested in assets instead of impulses. He created structures so he couldn't blow through the money even if he wanted to. He expanded his capacity to hold wealth, and he finally relaxed into it. 2 years later, he told me, I finally understand that my father's story doesn't have to be my story. I can have wealth and stability. I can have success and peace. But I had to heal the old wound before I could hold the new reality. That's the internal work. That's why some people can build wealth over and over, and others can never get past a certain level. It's not about tactics. It's about capacity. And capacity is built by healing the wounds and updating the programming that keeps you small. Here's another practice. Imagine yourself 1 year from now with 10 times your current net worth. Really sit with that. What comes up? Excitement, fear, doubt, unworthiness? Whatever comes up is information. That's showing you what you need to heal. That's showing you where your set point is. The discomfort you feel imagining more wealth is the same discomfort that will arise when you actually have more wealth. And if you haven't done the work to expand your capacity, you'll unconsciously sabotage to relieve that discomfort. So practice expanding your capacity now. Visualize having more. Notice the resistance. Breathe into it. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I have this much? What am I afraid I'll become? What am I afraid I'll lose? Answer honestly. Then ask, is that actually true? What evidence do I have? Can I find examples of people who have wealth and haven't experienced that fear? You're training your nervous system that it's safe to have more. You're expanding the container. This is not mystical thinking. This is practical neuroscience. Because your external reality will only grow as large as your internal capacity allows. Now let's talk about daily practices. Because knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. Everything we've covered becomes real when you build it into your daily life. Not as a massive overhaul, as small, consistent practices that compound over time. Start with your morning. The first hour of your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people start in reaction mode, phone, email, news, other people's agendas flooding in, and they wonder why they feel anxious and scattered. You're training your nervous system to be reactive, to be at the mercy of external demands. That's not a recipe for wealth. That's a recipe for exhaustion. Wealthy people start differently. They start in creation mode. They protect the first hour. No phone, no input, just presence. Some meditate. Some journal. Some move their body. Some do their most important work. The specifics don't matter as much as the principle. You're claiming your day. You're setting your frequency. You're choosing how you want to feel instead of letting circumstances choose for you. Try this tomorrow. Set your alarm 30 minutes earlier than usual. Don't check your phone. Make coffee or tea. Sit somewhere comfortable. Take 3 deep breaths. Then ask yourself, what wants to emerge today? Not what you have to do. What wants to emerge? What wants to be created? What conversation wants to happen? What insight wants to come through? Listen. Write down what comes. That's your guidance. That's your aligned action for the day. Then protect your peak hours. You know when you do your best thinking. For most people, it's the morning. Block that time. Make it sacred. No meetings, no email, no distractions. Just you and your highest leverage work. If people push back, you can say you have a standing commitment. You don't have to tell them it's a commitment to yourself. Build movement into your day, not just for fitness, for thinking. Your best ideas don't come when you're sitting. They come when you're moving, walking, swimming, yoga, whatever you enjoy. 20 minutes minimum. No podcast, no music, just movement and mental space. Let your mind wander. Let insights arrive. This isn't wasting time. This is accessing intelligence that sitting at your desk will never reach. End your day with reflection. 5 minutes. What went well today? What didn't? What did I learn? What will I do differently tomorrow? This practice builds wisdom. You're not just reacting to life. You're learning from it. You're extracting the lessons. You're compounding your growth. And once a week, do a deeper review. What were my 3 biggest wins this week? What were my 3 biggest challenges? What patterns do I notice? What needs to change? Am I spending time on high-leverage activities or performative ones? Am I moving toward wealth or just busy? This weekly reflection keeps you honest, keeps you calibrated, keeps you from drifting into patterns that don't serve you. Here's what this looks like in practice. You wake up at 6, you don't check your phone, you make coffee, you sit in your favorite chair, you take 3 deep breaths, you journal for 10 minutes. What wants to emerge today? You get clarity. You see that there's one important conversation you've been avoiding. That's your aligned action. You block time for it this afternoon. You protect 7 to 10 for deep work. That's your peak. You work on your highest leverage project. By 10, you've made real progress. The kind of progress that usually takes all day because you're not distracted. You take a walk, 25 minutes, no input, just thinking. By the end of the walk, you've solved a problem that's been nagging you for weeks. You come back and document the solution in 15 minutes. You do your meetings and calls from 11 to 3. Then you go home. You're present with your family. You work out. You make dinner. At 8, you spend 5 minutes reflecting. What went well? The deep work block. The walk. The conversation I finally had. What didn't? I checked email during lunch and it pulled me out of flow. What will I do differently? Keep my phone in another room until after deep work. That's a day of wealth building without exhaustion. You worked 6 focused hours. You made more progress than most people make in 12 distracted hours. You have energy left for your life. You're building something sustainable. That's the goal. Now let me give you something incredibly practical. A 30-day micro-challenge sequence. Each day has one tiny action that takes less than 60 seconds, but builds the foundation for wealth without effort. You can start this tomorrow. Day 1. When you wake up, before you check your phone, take 3 intentional breaths. That's it. You're training your nervous system that you control your morning, not your notifications. Day 2. Identify one meeting on your calendar this week that you don't actually need to attend. Decline it or delegate it. You're practicing saying no to low-leverage activities. Day 3. Send a 2-sentence email to someone you admire but haven't spoken to in a while. No ask, just appreciation or a genuine compliment. You're building relationships without agenda. Day 4. Look at your workspace right now. Remove one thing that doesn't serve you. A piece of clutter, a broken item, something that makes the space feel less intentional. You're upgrading your environment. Day 5. Track your time in 30-minute blocks today. At the end, categorize each block as high leverage, maintenance, or performative. You're building awareness of where your energy actually goes. Day 6. Identify one task you do regularly that someone else could do. Research what it would cost to delegate it. You're opening your mind to the possibility of leverage. Day 7. Write down one belief you have about money. Then ask, is this actually true? Or is this something I inherited? You're beginning to examine your wealth programming. Day 8. Block off 1 hour tomorrow for deep work. Put it on your calendar like a meeting. Treat it as non-negotiable. You're protecting your peak cognitive hours. Day 9. When someone compliments you today, practice receiving. Say thank you and nothing else. No deflecting, no explaining. Just thank you. You're expanding your capacity to receive. Day 10. Take a 20-minute walk with no input. No phone, no podcast, no music, just walking and thinking. You're creating space for insights. Day 11. Review your media diet from the past week. How much time did you spend consuming fear, outrage, or comparison? Commit to reducing it by half this week. Day 12. Identify one client, project, or commitment that drains you. Make a plan to exit it or transform it within 90 days. You're claiming your energy back. Day 13. Write down your 3 highest leverage activities, the things that actually build wealth. Schedule time for them tomorrow before anything else. You're practicing strategic laziness. Day 14. Think about a decision you're facing. Close your eyes. Imagine taking action. Notice if your body expands or contracts. You're learning to distinguish aligned action from forced action. Day 15. Calculate your hourly rate. Then calculate how much time you spend each week on tasks below that rate. Face the number. You're seeing the cost of not delegating. Day 16. Reach out to one person who's 5 years ahead of where you want to be. Ask if you can buy them coffee and learn from their journey. You're upgrading your environment through relationships. Day 17. Review your calendar for next week. Cancel or delegate anything that's not high leverage or genuinely joyful. You're practicing strategic no's. Day 18. Spend 5 minutes visualizing yourself with 10 times your current wealth. Notice what fear comes up. Write it down. You're identifying your wealth set point. Day 19. Identify one system you could build that would work without your constant involvement. Just identify it. Don't build it yet. You're planting seeds for compound ease. Day 20. When you feel the urge to check email or social media today, pause. Take 3 breaths instead. Then decide if you actually need to check or if it's just habit. You're breaking the reactivity pattern. Day 21. Write down something you've been forcing that isn't working. Give yourself permission to pivot or release it. You're practicing detachment. Day 22. Identify one small way you could automate, delegate, or eliminate something you do weekly. Implement it today. You're building compound ease. Day 23. Notice when you feel flow today. What conditions created it? Write them down. You're mapping your flow triggers. Day 24. Block out one full day next month with 0 meetings. Put it on your calendar now. You're creating space for strategic thinking. Day 25. Review your prices or rates. Are they reflective of your value? If not, raise them for your next new client. You're expanding your wealth capacity. Day 26. Identify one limiting belief that showed up this week. Write a counterexample from your own life that disproves it. You're rewiring your programming. Day 27. Send a thank you note to someone who helped you recently. Practice receiving by acknowledging what you were given. You're strengthening the receiving muscle. Day 28. Look at your goals. Are they yours, or are they what you think you should want? Be honest. Adjust if needed. You're aligning with genuine desire. Start with your morning. The first hour of your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people start in reaction mode. Phone, email, news, other people's agendas flooding in, and they wonder why they feel anxious and scattered. You're training your nervous system to be reactive, to be at the mercy of external demands. That's not a recipe for wealth. That's a recipe for exhaustion. Wealthy people start differently. They start in creation mode. They protect the first hour. No phone, no input, just presence. Some meditate, some journal, some move their body, some do their most important work. The specifics don't matter as much as the principle. You're claiming your day, you're setting your frequency, you're choosing how you. Second, identify the trigger. What pulled you back? Was it a stressful situation? A specific person? A financial fear? An opportunity that seemed urgent? Understanding the trigger helps you prepare for it next time. Triggers don't disappear, but you can change how you respond to them. Third, do one small thing to reset. Not everything. One thing. Take 3 breaths. Go for a walk. Journal for 5 minutes. Send yourself a reminder of why you're doing this differently. One small action breaks the pattern and reminds your nervous system that you have a choice. Fourth, recommit without drama. You don't need to start over. You don't need to beat yourself up. You just need to make the next decision from alignment instead of fear. That's it. The next decision. Then the next. Then the next. Progress isn't linear. It's iterative. Let me tell you about Sandra. She's a business coach who went through this exact cycle. She implemented everything we're talking about. Protected her mornings. Said no to low-leverage work. Built systems. Hired help. She was thriving. Then her biggest client almost left. Panic set in. Within 3 days, she was back to her old patterns. Checking email at 6 in the morning. Taking every meeting. Working nights and weekends. The old programming kicked in. If I'm not constantly available, I'll lose everything. It took her 2 weeks to notice. When she did, her first instinct was shame. I failed. I fell back. I'm not good at this. But then she remembered what we'd talked about. Relapse is part of growth. So she looked at the trigger. Fear of loss. That's what pulled her back. And underneath that fear was an old belief. My value comes from my availability. Once she saw that, she could work with it. She didn't try to fix everything at once. She just did one thing. She blocked her mornings again, just that. The next day, she did another thing. She declined a meeting that wasn't high leverage. Day by day, she rebuilt the practices. Within a week, she was back in alignment. And the client didn't leave. In fact, they renewed their contract because the quality of Sandra's work improved once she stopped being reactive. She told me, "The relapse taught me something the initial success didn't. It showed me where my programming still needed work. It showed me that fear of loss is my trigger. Now I know. When that fear shows up, I don't have to react to it. I can acknowledge it and choose differently. That's relapse proofing. It's not about never falling back. It's about catching yourself faster, understanding your patterns, and having tools to return to alignment without judgment. Here are the specific tools you need in your relapse recovery kit. Keep these somewhere you can access them when you need them. Tool 1. The pattern interrupt question. When you notice you're in old patterns, ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now that I can't actually control? Usually you'll find you're white-knuckling something out of fear. This question helps you see it. Tool 2. The 60-second reset. Stop what you're doing. Stand up if you're sitting. Put your hand on your heart. Take 3 deep breaths. Say out loud, I'm safe. I can choose differently. My worth is not tied to my productivity. Then ask, what would aligned action look like right now? Do that thing. Tool 3, the triage process. When you're overwhelmed and everything feels urgent, write down everything on your mind. Every task, every worry, every commitment. Then go through the list and mark each item. Must do today. Can delegate. Can delete. Can delay. You'll find that most things aren't actually urgent. This gives you back your power. Tool 4, the accountability loop. Have one person who knows you're on this journey. Someone who understands the principles of wealth without effort. When you notice you're relapsing, text them. Just 3 words. I'm in old patterns. They text back, I see you. What's one thing you can do right now? You respond. Then you do that one thing. The accountability isn't about judgment. It's about being witnessed and supported. Tool 5, the future self-check-in. Close your eyes. Imagine the version of you who has fully embodied wealth without effort. What would they do in this situation? What would they prioritize? What would they release? You already know the answer. Your future self is available to you right now. Ask them. Listen. Trust what you hear. These tools work because they're simple. When you're in relapse, you don't have capacity for complicated processes. You need something you can do in under 2 minutes that shifts your state and reconnects you to your intention. Now let's talk about sustainability, because this is the final piece. Everything we've covered only works if you can maintain it for years, not weeks. And maintenance requires something most people never think about: pleasure. You can't sustain a practice that feels like punishment. If wealth building feels like sacrifice, like white-knuckling, like denying yourself, you will eventually quit. Your nervous system will rebel. So the question is, how do you make wealth building pleasurable? First, you align it with things you genuinely enjoy. If you love walking, build your strategic thinking time into walks. If you love conversation, build your networking through meaningful dinners instead of stuffy events. If you love learning, structure your business so you're constantly encountering new ideas. When your wealth-building activities feel like joy, not obligation, you don't need discipline to maintain them. Second, you celebrate small wins. Most people only celebrate the big milestones, the six-figure launch, the major client, the acquisition, but those are rare. If you're only celebrating big wins, you're conditioning your nervous system that success is rare and hard. Instead, celebrate the small wins. You protected your morning today. That's a win. You said no to a draining meeting. That's a win. You had an insight during your walk. That's a win. Train your brain to notice and celebrate progress, not just outcomes. Third, you build in rest. Not as something you earn after you've worked hard enough. As a strategic component of wealth building, rest is when integration happens. It's when your subconscious processes what you've learned. It's when insights arrive. It's when your nervous system recalibrates. If you're constantly in output mode, you're blocking the very thing that creates your best work. Schedule rest the way you schedule work. A full day off every week. A real vacation every quarter. Time in your calendar for nothing. For staring out the window. For being bored. This isn't laziness. This is strategic recovery. Elite athletes understand this. Rest is where the growth happens. Your wealth building is no different. Let me tell you about Marcus. He's a venture capitalist who manages hundreds of millions of dollars. High pressure, high stakes. You'd expect him to work all the time. But he doesn't. He works intensely for 3 days a week. Meetings, deal flow, due diligence. Then he completely unplugs for 4 days. Hiking, reading fiction, spending time with his family. No work, no email. No exceptions. When I asked him how he could possibly maintain that schedule in his industry, he said something brilliant. The deals I pass on during my off days aren't the ones I should take anyway. The ones that require me to always be on are usually bad deals. The best opportunities don't have artificial urgency, and the best partners respect boundaries. His returns are in the top 1% of venture capitalists. He's healthier than anyone else in his peer group. His relationships are strong, and he's been doing this for 15 years without burning out. That's what sustainability looks like. That's what wealth without effort looks like at the highest levels. Now let's bring this all home. Let's talk about what happens when you actually embody this, when it's not just something you're trying, when it becomes who you are. You wake up without an alarm because your body is rested. You don't immediately reach for your phone because you're not afraid of what you missed. You sit with coffee and watch the light change. Your mind is quiet, present. You feel a sense of anticipation about your day, not dread. You think about your work and you feel engaged, not obligated. You're building something that matters to you. You're not pretending to care about something for the money. The money comes because the care is genuine. You're not forcing anything. You're in a dance with opportunities that keep appearing. You spend your peak hours on work that challenges you in a good way, work that makes you better. You lose track of time because you're in flow. When you finish, you feel energized, not depleted. You've created value. You've moved something significant forward, and it didn't require grinding yourself into dust. You have meetings and conversations, but only with people you genuinely want to talk to, people who expand you, people who are building things that matter. You're not networking out of desperation. You're connecting out of genuine interest. And because of that, the relationships are real. They last. They create opportunities neither of you could have predicted.